This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Brian Peña. I always join the Vito podcast, the best podcast in the United States.
I was trying to get it how I live. I want them dead presidents. I want to pull up, head spin, get it, get flat. I got 6 jobs. I don't get it. I don't get it.
And we are still not tired here on Two Bad Hombres. I am your host, Vito Jerome Churko, alongside my usual sidekick and partner in crime, that is the Doc from Doc and Jock. And we have a great in-studio guest with us this week, Doc, and Sasha Ristic. Sasha, the Director of Growth for Legacy Global Sports, also the event organizer for the Bauer Motown Classic. Sasha, welcome.
Thank you for having me, guys. Appreciate being here.
Well, great to have you in here. And first and foremost, that Bauer Motown Classic. How did it come to be, and when did it actually originate too?
Well, we'll have to go back to about 2004, 2005. I was the manager for my son's hockey team, and the hockey team was in, financial distress, as most hockey teams typically are. Went to, the director of our organization, said, "What do you do? We've got families that can't afford, can't pay." And he said, "You need to run a tournament." I said, "Well, I already have a job, and I don't know the first thing about running a tournament." He says, "Well, don't worry, I'll hook you up with somebody." Well, he hooked me up with somebody that knew about events and put on events, but I was the catalyst about, calling the teams and getting the teams there. And that first year, I found it so fun and fascinating that I ended up getting 32 teams at the 97 birth year, which was the first year, to show up in October in 2005.
And you said how many teams? 27 or 30? 32
at that time.
And now you have 318?
Correct.
My God. So how did you expand that much over the years, too?
Well, the second year we added, people heard about it, and then we added a birth year. The second year we added the 96 birth year, 1 year older than us, because the coach on that team, we skated like back to back. And so we were good friends. And actually one of our assistant coaches was an assistant on that team. So the 96s took place on the second year. And then on the third year, we took the 96s away, and we had the 97s, we added the 98s, and then we added the 99 birth year, or the 98s only, and then the 99s the following year. So it started growing by just adding the lowest birth year, the next coming up year. Next thing you know, it just took off, little by little, year by year, we expanded one age group. And now it's from 18U all the way down to the 2008 birth year, which is me, 8, 9-year-olds.
Different ages, various ages. And then you can see, a lot of different levels of talent then, I would imagine, from 8 and 9-year-olds to U18.
Correct. You'll see, one of the cool things about this event is it's truly one of the most competitive tournaments for the size, right? The size is so large that you wouldn't expect to get good games. One of the things that we do is we sort of break up each division into their own pools, if you will, so that the competition level stays as high as it possibly can. And that's what drives people to come back, right? They like the fact that we make those tough decisions to tell a team, "I'm sorry, you're not good enough to be in the top 16. In the top 16, then have awesome competition." And, it's never easy making that decision, but it works for the tournament because the teams do want to play, they do want to show up, and they do want to, see how they fare with the rest of the world. And so it's pretty cool.
And now you're so actively involved, and it started with your oldest son, is what
Correct.
You told me over the phone before doing this interview here in studio this week, Sasha. And did you ever envision getting as active as you are now?
No way. Like I said, I was working in the automotive industry, and I just absolutely loved, I had the passion for hockey, always did. And when my son, my oldest was pretty good in hockey, the coach and I became best friends, and he asked me to be manager. He was the coach. And next thing you know, we were just everywhere we went, we knew the top teams because we were a top team, and we got close with everybody. My network began to grow. While I was working at the automotive, I'd be getting phone calls about the tournament, about coming in, and at that time I only had the one. And so it was important. I'd be getting calls from all over the country and many different people. And when the automotive industry started taking a downturn, I started thinking about the possibilities of doing this full time. And in 2008, they were giving buyout packages. I said, let's do it. Let's go for it.
And then how was managing that first year? Getting thrown into it and doing it for the first time, what was that like for you?
You mean the first year in 2005 or after I started?
With your oldest son, actually. How did, when you first started with that, what was that like for you?
Well, I mean, at first it was a learning experience, right? I really didn't know the hockey world like I do today. So it was, again, the coach was a mentor, was my best friend. We talked 3, 4, 5 times a day and had lunch together. And, it was a phenomenal thing, just being in the hockey network in the community, if you will, with all the friends and families. And you'll see that we're a pretty tight group on Facebook. We all follow each other. We're all supporting each other. And I think it's, one of those things that you learn as you go with every job, whatever it is, right? So for me, it was not only learning, but then what is it that I don't like when I go to tournaments? And those were the things that made my events that much better because I incorporated those things. I basically, if I saw something that wasn't any good or I didn't like it, I would change it and I would make sure that my events included those things.
Growing up, how did you develop your love of hockey and who were some of the players that you kind of gravitated to as a youngster?
Oh, that's the fun thing. Being a first generation American, my folks came over here and didn't speak any English, so hence my name, Sasha. My brother is 2 or 3 years after me, are named Jimmy and Bobby. So they got Americanized after me. But, the passion, I loved sports, right? My cousin grew up in Windsor. He played hockey, and we're the same, age. He's a month younger than me. I spent a lot of time with him and, just followed him around to rinks, and, it was awesome. And we enjoyed it. My father became a Red Wing fan along with myself. And, for me, I was even watching during the Dead Wing era and, guys like Johnny Ogrodnik and Ivan Boldarev and, names like that, you go back and I can remember listening to the radio when, Wayne Gretzky was playing so that we couldn't see all the games. My kids are like, what do you mean you couldn't see the games? I'm like, it was on radio.
It wasn't on TV back then. Right. That was a long time ago, too.
You have to be past sports or something. And even then, they weren't all on. So, I just had a passion for the sport and absolutely loved hockey and followed it. And, through the years, I've met a lot of the players that played back then, and actually like Peter Klima, his twin boys played with my son in 2010. And obviously I knew Peter, for a while and became good friends.
I was going to ask you too. I mean, who's the coolest former pro or current pro that you've met? I guess maybe former and current that you've met through being this event organizer.
Well, that's hard to say. There are so many. I've had the privilege, and that was. I'll tell you a funny story. I think the moment I knew it was time to quit the automotive was when I was sitting across from my boss, and my phone rang. I had 2 phones. I had the work phone, and then I had my personal phone. My personal phone rang. And I looked down and I go, uh-oh. I showed it to my boss and I said, I got to go. I got to take this. It's a one-on-one meeting with my boss. And he looked at me and says, I understand. You should take that. That phone call was from Igor Larionov. And Igor was at the time back in California. And he had been coming to my events for a while because he had a 98 son. And he'd always sit up with me at Troy and staying away from the crowd. And we became good friends. And to this day, we're still good friends. And so the fact that, here's a Hall of Famer that's, that I'm pretty cool with is awesome. Right. And it, like I said, there's many stories like that. I had a kid that lived with me from Texas and to play hockey on my son's team. And we're in the car driving to practice. And I said, guys, be quiet. I got to take this call. And it was Al McInnes. He goes, are you just talking to a Hall of Famer? I go, yeah, these guys all come to my tournaments.
It's no big deal. You're used to it now. And you really are used to it, right? At this point.
It is, they're normal guys, and the hockey guys are fantastic. I don't think I've met a bad hockey coach as far as, the NHL guys. They're really truly are special, and they're great people. And they're just normal guys. And if you follow me on Twitter and Facebook, you can see I've put out a whole bunch of people I've met over the years. And I call it my wall of fame. When you walk into our office, there's a little lobby we have, and the wall of fame is filled with all the people that have been at our events, whether they're coaching or whether their kids have played. We've got a picture with them, and it's pretty awesome.
And I've seen that you've incorporated the players into your tweets for the Bauer Motown Classic and leading up to the event itself, October 20th through 22nd, which we didn't bring up yet, and being an event that's going to take place at 19 different rinks throughout the Metro Detroit region. It's an event sponsored by the Detroit Sports Commission, obviously, too. And what would you like to get out of this event, too?
As far as...
What's the ultimate goal?
My ultimate goal is that everybody comes to Detroit, has a fantastic time, loves the event, and wants to come back, right? For me, flawless event, on time, obviously no injuries. Those things are important that we want. We want people to come and say, wow, that was a great tournament, and I want to come back. And, I pride myself in that. It was never, for me about, finances. It was always, I want to put on the best event. And, now that it's become a business, it's a little bit of both, but I still pride myself on putting on the best tournament in the world. And, when things go wrong, and it might not be wrong for somebody, it just might be a coach's eyes that they were, upset about something. And I always take it to heart. And I remember one time a manager at one of the rinks asked me, hey, how many teams do you have here? I go, at the time there was probably 200. And she goes, well, how many complaints do you have? I go, maybe 3 or 4. She goes, and you're worried about that? I said, yeah, I don't like to have any. She goes, you're never going to please everybody. So I take that now, and, I don't want any. I don't want any complaints. I don't want any issues. But I guess I could take 3 or 4.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. When it's only 3 or 4, parents or
just whatever,
just things that happen that maybe you don't like, right? That occur.
Well, it's not even me. It's like a coach thought the referee did bad, right? I can't fix that, right? And you're never going to win those battles. Right?
No,
that's the hardest part with any sport. Youth sports today is, parents always feel they're getting screwed by referee. The winning side is, happy, or losing side's not, and. I've been in situations where another former pro player, Keith Kachuk, said, can I take these referees home with me? Because St. Louis doesn't have refs like this. His parents were upset that maybe the game was called, but he absolutely loved the way the game was called. So it's one of those things where, I understand it's never going to be 100% that everyone's going to like what happened on the ice, but I can't worry about that. I have to worry about that the games go on time. Was the competition good? Was there any, major issues and knock on wood, typically isn't?
Yeah, the bottom line is that the quality of play is important and that the event runs smoothly.
100%, right? I that was one of my biggest pet peeves is most hockey parents, we have to be there an hour before the game, have our kids warm up, get with their team. So if we're there an hour early and then the rink's half hour behind or an hour behind, now you're there 2 hours early, and it's really, nobody likes that, right? So I pride myself on being on time, and my events I'm pretty adamant about being on time. If my guys know that's my sticking point is I will make sure that they start early, if nothing else.
And through grassroots efforts, everybody that speaks on it will say that youth hockey in the state of Michigan, through the likes of the Illich family and things like that, through Little Caesars, other organizations, youth hockey in the state of Michigan is really outstanding from the grassroots level. A lot of youngsters that are coming up that want to play sports definitely play hockey in this state.
Oh, 100%. Michigan, Minnesota, Massachusetts, the 3Ms, they're, probably the strongest. And now with the Blackhawks' success, Illinois is right there too. So they do a phenomenal job themselves, and they've got some top teams every year that they do a fantastic job. So, yeah, I mean, youth sports for hockey wise, those are the states that you want to be in.
And with all the different teams, all the different rinks being utilized too throughout the state, how many people are used to staff this? I mean, do you even know the total amount of people that actually are used to staff the event completely?
Right off the top of my head, no. I mean, I know that I obviously have 19 rinks. I'll have 19, supervisors of those rinks that will handle, plus timekeepers, plus then me and my staff that'll be going from rink to rink to rink to make sure things are going on, running smoothly. So, yeah, I mean, roughly got to be about 50 people. Well, maybe more with apparel, with the merchandise department and those people. So, yeah.
So I wanted to kind of move it in a direction out towards the Red Wings a little bit, too, and get your thoughts about the Wings. And they started 2-0, new arena, and you haven't been there, you said, yet, but we've heard all about the glorious aspects of it, this and now, the perks and bells and whistles of it. But first and foremost, from what you've seen from the Wings so far, what are you thinking about them and their season that they're going to have?
Listen, it's no secret that everybody knows that we obviously missed the playoffs, and it looks like we're in for a bump. But with all pro teams, whether it's football or hockey or basketball, I think any given team can beat any other team on any given night, right? So these are professional athletes, and they're there for a reason. And if you've seen some of them and the skill level that they have, it's truly amazing. And I'm not one to be a negative person, so I really don't want to say that, the Wings are going to struggle. I hope deep down in my heart that they do fantastic and they make the playoffs. And, we get the few surprises from some of the young guys. And, Mantha has a great season. Larkin has a great season. And guys like Sheehan turn it around. And guess what? Now we've got ourselves, a nice squad, right? So, yeah, I think I'm excited just to see how they do. I'm going to follow them, win, lose, or draw. I'm a fan, right?
Did any of the Cup teams hold a special place for you in your heart? For me, the night of the 1997 Stanley Cup winning game at Joe Louis Arena was the day I graduated high school. So the Wings win the Cup. I'm having a good time at a friend's graduation party. It was just wild because growing up on the east side over here of Detroit, we partied on Gratiot when the Wings won the Cup in 97 and 98. And that 4-mile stretch from 8 mile, 9 mile, all the way up to 13 mile, there were cars lined up, honking, because of the fact that it had been so long since the Wings had won a title, and, celebrating with all the fans, getting on the cars, just hopping off on Gratiot. And it was just an amazing experience, seeing Steve Yzerman hoist the cup. And I think that the 4 cup-winning teams have really, in terms of the fans, brought everybody together in terms of the love and passion for hockey. And for me, I grew up watching the Wings. My earliest memories were of the 87-88, I believe, Edmonton, Detroit Red Wings, playoff series. And they were outstanding because the Wings were on the come-up trying to defeat this juggernaut in Edmonton. And then the rest is history as they tried to each and every year, take that next step with all the failures. And I think without all those failures, it wouldn't have been so sweet in 97.
Oh, 100%. I'm just like you, John. That's, to me, that is, the 97 year was the year for me as well. It was ultimate special because in February, my son was born. So it was my first son, right? It was a special year. And then the Red Wings marched, 26th, 1997 was the big fight. Mm-hmm. And you'll never forget that. At that moment, I said, we're winning the Stanley Cup. And we certainly did. And to me, that was the special year. And my dad was such a fan. He never missed a game. He'd drive home just to watch a game no matter where he was. Even at a wedding, he'd bring one of the portable TVs to watch the Wings. And then he passed away, unfortunately, in 98, so he never got to see the second one. So that's why the 97 one to me is very special.
And you'll never forget that.
Never.
Because of that. And that's absolutely a great memory. And the Wings were on the top of the NHL world back then. Now, I know you want to be optimistic, and Wings fans want to try to be optimistic, but it doesn't look as bright for them this season. You just look in Vegas and see what the odds are for them. Not very bright or optimistic odds, and high odds, I guess you could say, for them. Despite all that being said, what's the team you would say that could be on top of the NHL world this season?
Oh, that's a good one. Listen, I think Chicago and Pittsburgh are just the two perennials that you can plan on being there all the time. Mm-hmm. They do things right. Obviously, Chicago put a whooping on them in the first game. So, I like up-and-coming team like Edmonton. Connor McDavid is just an unbelievable player. He's my son's birth year. That's why he wears that 97. And he never played against my son because he always played up. He was so special. And it was funny. One time we went to go watch him in Toronto, and we were at a tournament, and they were in another rink. We went to go watch his team play. He wasn't there because he had a broken wrist or arm or something, and we were so disappointed that we didn't get to see him as a youngster play. I did get to see him on TV as a youngster. They had their playoffs or something on a hotel. When I was in a hotel, I heard the name. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So it's pretty awesome. I like guys like that. I want to see them do well because I think he's such a special player.
And then if McDavid's not the best player, he's one of the best. And then I wanted to ask you, between Sid the Kid and Alex Ovechkin, who's the best out of those two? Because there's been that debate for many, many years, and they're like the vets of the game. They really are vets of the game now, but they're still up there in terms of talent, pure ability. So how would you rank those two head to head?
I'm going to say Sid just because, he's proven he can win. Ovechkin in the past has shown some, questionable work ethic, and that's not what you want to see from NHL people. And Sid the Kid he keeps winning, right? He keeps doing it. And even through all his concussions and everything else he's come through, and he's still one of the best.
He's got the rings, right, to prove all the accolades and success that he's had up to this point. Doc?
The current state of the game, obviously growing up, we were lucky enough to have, to participate in a league without a cap. So the Wings potentially could go out and assemble a team in 2002 that, was filled with many Hall of Famers. Now, you establish a cap to ensure competitive balance throughout the league, but it causes problems because of the fact that, hey, some players are going to demand more money and you got to make tougher decisions. It's hurt the Red Wings a little bit, but do you like the state of the game with the salary cap when you have, more competitive teams across the league?
From a selfish standpoint, no. Right? Obviously, I loved when the Wings, spared no expense and went out and got the players, and I consider them the Yankees of the NHL, right? Now, obviously, with the cap, it's difficult. It's difficult to manage, and we've got our salary cap issues. There's no doubt about that, and it's unfortunate. So we're in the new NHL era, and we're going to struggle because of it. I guess it's fair for, like you said, competitive balance. It's nice to see a team like Nashville, go to the Stanley Cup, right? And LA winning a Stanley Cup. So I think from that standpoint, the NHL is doing what it can to grow the game, and they're doing it right by getting some of these out of the norm hockey cities to do well.
And I think it's good, Doc. I think it really is, too, where you can see these teams not buy players and be successful. The Wings had that mentality and won that way for many, many years, but now it's these teams that are building through the draft, building from the ground up. And I think that's a way of now in professional sports all across the board, Major League Baseball, NBA, maybe not as much NBA, but Major League Baseball definitely, too, which is my favorite sport. And I think it's a beautiful thing about the NHL that there's so much parity, too, as a result of it, especially right now, Sasha.
Oh, that's for sure. Like I said, you'll see a team do well one year and the next year not so well. And I think it was when Carey Price got hurt, you saw Montreal just take a dive.
Yeah.
Right. And so you saw how important he was. It was funny. We're having a debate. Should he have been the MVP that year? Because he was the most valuable player to his team because he wasn't there. They lost all those
proved
games.
it, right? Big time.
Yeah, for sure.
And you can ride a hot goaltender and make it all the way to the finals out of nowhere and be the 8th seed. And what do you think about that? How important is a goaltender truly to winning a cup in the NHL?
It's, as Red Wing fans, we know it to be the case. It seemed like we were always snake bit by the hot goalie, whether it was Urbe back in the day or, someone else stealing the show. And, defensively, we were always strong. We'd give up 17 to 20 shots and one would go in, we'd lose 1-0 and we peppered them with 50, right? It was just, that was the way, and it continues to this day. I always like to pick the stronger goaltender, but then again, Matt Murray proved us all wrong that, hey, Fleury was the starter. Nope, he came in and won the Stanley Cup, and, it was, I guess there's a new age in hockey. It can be all changed.
And guys that don't have great regular season success, such as Chris Osgood, can win cups too. So, it's riding that hot goaltender. And did you guys know that Jimmy Howard has 200 career? Well, he won his 200th career game as an NHL goaltender. And the first game of the regular season, the first game ever at Little Caesars Arena, October 5th against the Wild. Couldn't believe that he has 200 career victories. And he's the guy that really has to guide them. If they're going to do anything this year of, high-level quality, right? It's going to be him doing a lot of that, or helping them win big time too, guys.
I'm of the opinion, too, in terms of the competition. Jimmy Howard has a chance to do some things. It's just the one knock against him is staying healthy. Obviously, riddled with injuries for a couple of seasons. I'm glad you brought up the goaltending, because Detroit is kind of known for a couple things. Riding the goaltender of the Detroit Red Wings and being really hard on the quarterback of the Lions. Do you feel like that was fair in terms of what the fans do to the Detroit Red Wings goalies? Because I remember, really going hard at Greg Steffen, Senza. Before we got Dominic Hasek, I feel like the Red Wings goaltenders back in the day, oh my gosh, it was really tough to play that position. You needed to have thick skin.
Oh, no doubt. Those you said it. I mean, it's the quarterback for the Lions and Red Wings goaltenders, right? And it just really goes down to how they're playing. Like I said, if they gave up 20 shots defensively, we were strong, and you let up one, even though it might not have been your fault. You let up one or two, and the other team, and we didn't score enough, and it's a loss. So it gets magnified. And, same like with football.
Is Chris Osgood overrated, underrated, or fairly evaluated? Because that's a debate that we always have, is Chris Osgood a Hall of Famer? Was he the beneficiary of being part of a team that had Hall of Famers? But in the end, how I view it was, the dude still went out there and won cups, and he had opportunities to leave and do some things, and he came back and also had success. So Chris Osgood is a guy that I feel like is a little bit undervalued, but the debate is worth having regarding, what this guy brought to the table.
I agree with you. I think, the numbers speak for themselves.
Were you a fan?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen,
Well, there was a camp of like Hasek, Osgood a little bit, because, some people really kind of like the style of Dominic Hasek a little bit because of the fact that he just brought a little bit of flair, whereas Chris Osgood on the other end of the spectrum, just strictly professional, wasn't really a gregarious personality. Some people kind of gravitated toward Hasek because of the fact that he had that aura of like, he could just psych people out just by being the goalie of the Red Wings.
And Hasek was that dominant regular season goaltender where Ozzy really never was, and he was ripped tremendously by a large sect of the Red Wings faithful because of that, I know, from time to time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, it's the last dance between that goal line and a goal, right? So if you let one up, you're the worst person in the world, right? So that goaltender position is no fun for anyone, right? You have to have thick skin. You have to be able to shake off that shot and say, okay, you're not beating me again. So these, hats off to goalies. It's really a mind game that they have to go through each and every day.
They're put in crucial spots left and right, and a lot of the game depends upon them, really. I mean, so they got to be able to deal with all that pressure and have thick skin big time.
And that's why I say that, the Red Wings this year, if Howard continues to play well and then Mrazek comes in and plays well, and the goaltenders can carry a team.
Yeah.
I said, we saw that with Montreal. Montreal was not a offensive juggernaut that, oh my God, look at these guys scoring 5-6 goals a game. No, Price kept them in the games. And when Price kept them in the games, you could win some, you could steal some. And I think, with what we've got tied the record for the most shootout wins in a row, even go keep it to a tie and let us go for the shootout win.
Now, you were talking a little bit about Detroit and the city. Do you find it challenging at this point in time in terms of the teams and things like that, kind of, going to the different arenas or things like that? Any challenges with rinks in the city?
No, not particularly. I've been working with all the rinks here for such a long time that I've got great relationships and, I'm pretty open with them, and they know what I'm looking for, and we usually use the same rinks for most of our tournaments. So we run tournaments, not only in Michigan, but Chicago and on the East Coast and Western New York and Ontario. So we run a lot of tournaments.
And now your favorite Wings player of all time, who is that for you?
I have to say two. I can't say one. And 19 and 91, Yzerman and Fedorov.
Now your favorite NHL player of all time, is it the same thing for you?
It is. I mean, I still, those two are my, go-to guys. It was just a pleasure watching them.
Okay. And I think a lot of people too, Doc, wish that Fedorov maybe had a better end to his career with the Red Wings too. I know a lot of people kind of, were in dismay over how he exited or how all that happened too.
I'm not bitter about that one bit. I think he's got to do what he's got to do. And now we see all the situations that his finance guy took all his cash. So, if he had to extend his career to play and go for the money, he's got to do what he's got to do. And I don't blame him one bit for that.
Now, how about honoring him, though, and retiring his number?
100%. It better be.
Yeah.
He's like, my kids get to see highlight videos of him now. And I'm like, yeah, he was that special. He was fantastic.
If a parent's listening, they have a young son, 7, 8, 9 years old, and they want to get him into youth hockey, what's a couple pieces of advice you would give in terms of getting a young family maybe potentially started in the world of Pee Wee hockey or young playing hockey at a young age?
Skate. First, learn how to skate properly. Everybody really wants to get on teams and start playing games, which obviously that's fun for the kids, and you're almost forced to do that to keep the kids interested. But you've got to really get them the fundamentals and saying if you can't skate, you can't play. So you've got to skate. So get the kids skating. Start them out early. There's a lot of programs at every local rink, every local community has Learn to Skate. Start there and then go from there.
And now, before the first day of the Bauer Motown Classic, you have a scrimmage happening as part of the Bauer experience, I believe it's referred to as. And talk about that and some Red Wings players. I don't know if you can reveal them. I don't think you can, but those guys might be showing up too to help out with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, typically what I've always done when we started this tournament many, many years ago, I always got teams from not only out of state, but far away to come. And this year's no different. LA Junior Kings are coming out, and they want to make it worth their while. So to not only play 4 tournament games, you could play up to 6. I get them games either Thursday night before the tournament starts, or on Sunday if they're eliminated, we'll get them an extra game. This year's no different. So they'll end up playing a team from Windsor on Thursday night at Fraser Hockeyland at 5:30 to 7. And the Bauer experience will be there at the rink from 6 to 9. And this will be an opportunity for players and, families to go try on sticks or try on skates, try the sticks, try on the gloves, get on the ice, see what you like, try the different, flexes and curves on the stick. And then, the Bauer guys will make some fun, put radar guns out there and do some special games and stuff for the kids to make it exciting. And then, like you said, we're going to have a few people there. The Red Wing players will be there. I will wait for Bauer to announce who they will be. But if you can put 2 and 2 together, you can find the Bauer guys in the Wings, and you'll know who they are. They'll be at the arena. And then we're also going to have 2 people from social media guys that in the hockey community, they're well known, and that's the guys from On the Bench. So I'm excited to announce that the Sports Commission's helping bring those guys here and partnering up with us. And that's a huge, huge, huge thing for the kids. I know my kid from, he said, Dad, I'll come home for college just to see
for that, huh?
Yeah.
It's that big.
So I said, perfect. So I'm excited. It's something in a new direction we've never done. So I'm excited to see how it works out.
And I can tell your ultimate goal is to make all the players and parents happy, but that's got to be so darn tough at times too. I mean, you're not going to, and you kind of already referred to that earlier in the interview too.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, my aim is to make everyone happy, and I strive for perfection. I know I can't get it done, but I'm going to bust my butt trying to.
Living in Michigan, I've seen on your Twitter page as well, you enjoy the game of golf. Now, for me, it's one of those things where I do understand where people say, a bad day on the golf course is better than a good day at the office. But man, my game is terrible at the moment. How's your game?
Terrible as well. No, I can't say terrible. It's, everybody sees me and says, man, you've got a good swing. So yeah, unfortunately, I only play like twice a year. And, ever since I really started this job, I love my job so much. I work numerous hours. I mean, 12-hour days are normal for me. It's just because I love it. And so I really don't get out. I've got a friend, my best friend's got a league on Wednesdays. And I tell him I'm going to sub. And if the weather meets my conditions, I will be there. So it's got to be perfect. Can't be too hot. Can't rain. It can't be muggy. If it's perfect, I'll be there. So.
And regarding the Bauer Motown Classic once again, how much will you be drained by the end of all of it?
I've learned to pace myself. When it was just me, I was emotionally drained and physically drained, and it would take a while. Now that I have staff and guys I can trust, I'll be back at work on Monday like it's a normal day. And just go on to the next event. So for me, I've learned how to handle it, and I'll be able to lean on my staff.
So when do you start planning for next year's event then?
Probably immediately. I mean, it's such a big and important event that, these teams are starting to make choices. We'll probably have a Thanksgiving sale, if you will, a Black Friday sale to promote the event or something of that sort, where we'll try to get teams to start registering early because, spots are limited. They end up, we can only take so many at every age group. So it all depends on what ice rink we're in.
Take us and our listeners through a typical work day for you in a 12-hour work day. Let's say what's going to happen for you on Thursday of this week.
Well, that's the fun part. There is no typical day, right? I mean, every day with my new position of growth manager, I'll be in a lot of meetings now where we're talking to, new ways to build the business or, different opportunities.
What time do you roll into the office?
About 8:30, and I'm there till about 7:30 every night. I mean, a lot of times my kid skates next to my office, so I wait till he's done. So it's perfect. It works out really well. But one of the things that the best part about this job is every email that comes in is a different opportunity. It's either, a question about one of our events or wants to get into it, or, what can we do with this? I get, you can only imagine the different types of avenues I'm pulled into. And like today I spoke to a person who creates apps and wants us to use their app. And so a lot of my time gets spent on new ventures and, video. I'm going to have people streaming at the game at the Motown Classic. And, I got video crews coming out for all these different arenas. And so just putting that all together, and then the social media aspects, I have people who are going to be covering the tournament. And so there's just a lot of things that go into it. So there's not a typical day.
So you oversee a ton of stuff. As a director of growth, hell of a lot of stuff. Really.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's nothing that's not on the table. Anything that's got to do with hockey, it comes through me now. So it's, I've got Travis Howe as our director. Travis is one of the founders of the company. He is Gordie Howe's grandson. He is Mark Howe's son. So, you guys talked about who are the people that you've met and the coolest things. I mean, I did meet Gordie Howe.
That's pretty darn cool.
That's pretty impressive, right?
Yeah.
And spending time with Mark Howe as well is a pleasure. And so I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of great people in this world and in the hockey world, and I love it, right? And so Travis is the one that's in charge of the hockey division, if you will. But him and I are like, joined at the hip, if you will. We do everything together as far as setting budgets and figuring out what makes sense and what doesn't.
And since his passing, a lot of stories have come out regarding Gordie Howe, his interaction with the fans. I mean, I recall a story where a youngster was at the arena, and I think he was using the restroom at Joe Louis, and he looks to his left, and he's like, wait a minute, that's Gordie Howe. And he kind of freaked out a little bit, and Gordie was, real cool and was like, hey, kid, good talking to you, and gave him an autograph and all that. What was your experience like getting to know and, having a chance to spend time with Gordie Howe?
I can tell you one of the most defining moments was when I happened to be in the suite with the family when Mark got his number, when he got retired, the number retired. And we were up in the suite, and Gordie he wasn't, as bad as he was starting to slow down, but he could still, communicate. And that we were up there, I think it was in the Illich suite. So right a few rows below us during the game, they actually had a guy propose to his girlfriend. And obviously she said yes. And, the whole place went crazy and all that kind of stuff. And here's Gordie. He was trying to get their attention. And I was watching him the whole time. And I'm like, what's he doing? He took a napkin or something and threw it and tried to get the people's attention. And finally someone looked up and said, oh my God, that's Gordie Howe. Well, Gordie took a marker and signed the program book for the day that had Mark's picture on it, and told him best wishes and good luck. And I'm like, he didn't have to do that.
No, not at all.
Right? That's the kind of human he was. And I can tell you that the Howe family, they're all that way. There's a special place for those people. They are phenomenal. I mean, wow. The integrity, the values, they're just awesome.
So Gordie Howe, such a fun-loving guy, and I think meeting him and getting to know him at least a little bit kind of validates how cool your job truly is.
Oh,
too.
it's so cool. I tell you, the first time I met him, I was shy. I just started with the company, and I was like, I didn't know what to say. And Travis introduced me to him, and he had his little dog Rocket, and he loved that. It was funny because he goes, I did this to piss off Maurice. It was so funny. And when I asked him for a picture, it took up a courage for me to ask for his picture. I said, sure. So I sat down next to him up in the bleachers of the tournament, and he's holding his dog. And then as Travis is ready to take a picture, he puts up his hand right in front of my face. He's got the biggest mitt you've ever seen, right? And it covered my entire face. And so we're laughing. And obviously we took more pictures. But to me, that was the type of, fun person he was, right? And I can't forget that type of thing, right? But the funniest story I ever had was when I first met Steve Yzerman. And I had no idea. It was just crazy. It was me and my son were flying to St. Louis for a hockey tournament. And I ended up going for some reason in front of him in the security line. And he kept getting stopped. He had a piece of gum, so he had to go back out and take the tinfoil out. And he had his phone. He had to go back. And while I'm getting my belt on, getting my shoes on, all of a sudden next to me is Steve Yzerman. I'm like, I froze. I'm like, oh my God, it's
really him.
Right?
Yeah.
He was at the time working for the Wings. He was done playing. And he got dressed and took off. And I was just didn't say anything. And I'm like, and my son looks at me and goes, you look like you just saw a ghost. I go,
do you know who I just saw?
Steve Yzerman. Was just serious. What? I go, yeah, it was Steve Yzerman. He goes, let's go find him. I go, are you crazy? I go, this is a huge airport. He could be anywhere. He goes, Dad, he's going to the Blackhawks game because we were playing the Blackhawks in the playoffs. I go, oh, you're so right. So we looked at the flights where Chicago, and it happened to be on the same path that we were going. And sure, there he is. He wasn't in his gate. He was in a gate that was way before his, by himself. We ended up taking a picture with my son and him, not me. So that was the most nervous I ever was meeting a player.
How much would you love for Stevie Y to come back to run the franchise?
I'm trying to be politically correct because I have friends in the organization.
Which is totally fine, and we understand that too.
I would love for Stevie to come back.
At least have a role, right?
In any
role.
capacity.
That's what we mean. Any role possible. Just to have him back in the front office doing something with the organization. That's what's key, and we hope it'll happen.
Did you attend the final game at the Joe?
No, I did not.
But everyone that was there was saying it was just
that looked really cool.
An elegant closing ceremony, really kind of harkened to a lot of great memories at the Joe Louis Arena. But many people will say it had its time, but a lot of great memories too. So all props to the Joe Louis Arena, because for all of us, in terms of growing up watching hockey, a lot of our early memories were made at Joe Louis Arena. But now with the new Little Caesars Arena, it's a perfect arena for 2017. And hopefully a bunch of new memories will be created, and hopefully your tournament turns out to be very effective. You can follow and get information about the tournament upcoming at Bauer_Motown, and that's at capital BAUER_Motown. And you can get information about the upcoming tournament later this month.
Hey, really quick, what's your fondest memory of the Joe?
My fondest memory. It has to be my son playing there. We used to skate there. He played for Little Caesars, so we were there all the time. And so I got pretty spoiled. I was able to go everywhere. I knew, obviously, Al Sabatka, and we got to be good friends with Al. And, so it was special. We had a lot of moments there, so it's hard for me to say what was my one moment.
Well, you know what? Many great stories shared by you, Sasha, and great insight about the Bauer Motown Classic. Best of luck with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Head spin, get it fly. I got 6 jobs out.